Hello, my name is Chris DiMartino, and I'm a Sales and Applications Engineer at Modelithics. In this video, we'll be discussing Modelithics 3D geometry models for hyperboloid connectors from IEH Corporation. Let's get started. Modelithics 3D geometry models for IEH connectors are available in the Modelithics Complete Plus 3D library. Let's start by demonstrating a single-ended S-parameter simulation with this configuration shown here in HFSS. Keep in mind that S-parameters for all models were simulated in both single-ended and differential mode. So here we have an HFSS project that has two IEH connectors attached to one another. Specifically, we have a 200-pin HMK male connector attached to a 200-pin HMK female connector. PCBs are attached to the other side of both connectors. This is the simulated insertion loss and return loss up to 5 GHz. We can see how the insertion loss remains within 2 dB throughout this entire frequency range. This is an HFSS configuration used to perform a differential S-parameter simulation. Included here are the same two connector models. This time, notice the differential traces on the PCB. Here's the simulated insertion loss and return loss up to 5 GHz. Again, the insertion loss remains within 2 dB throughout this entire frequency range. Let's now turn our attention to a feature called Dynamic Region Selection, which is included within all of the Modelithics 3D models for IEH connectors. Dynamic Region Selection lets the user specify which objects to include in a simulation. The end result is reduced overall simulation time and resource requirements. For example, shown here is the same model for a 200-pin HMK male connector. This connector has 200 pins arranged in 5 rows and 40 columns. Let's open the properties of this model and then select the Parameters tab. Notice the quantity of columns and quantity of rows parameters. These parameters allow us to specify how many columns and rows to include in the simulation. We also have the column number and row number parameters. These parameters let us specify the starting point for the pins we want to include in terms of the column and row numbers. Let's go ahead and set column number to 5 and quantity of columns to 6. We'll also set the row number to 1 and the quantity of rows to 2. With these settings, 6 columns and 2 rows of pins would be simulated. The pins that would be simulated start at the 5th column and 1st row. Let's take a look at the model with these settings. We can see how the pins that are selected to be included in the simulation are shaded with respect to the rest of the pins. Now when we run the simulation, we'll see it finish in much less time compared to a simulation that includes all the pins. Well, that concludes this video. For more information on the Modelithics 3D models for IEH connectors, check out the article titled 3D Connector Models Enhance Signal Integrity Analysis. You'll find it in the published articles section on the Modelithics website. You can also visit the blog section where you'll find a blog post titled 3D Connector Models Dynamically Reduce Simulation Time. And don't forget the IEH MVP page on the Modelithics website. And finally, to request a free trial, you can visit www.modelithics.com or you can email sales@modelithics.com.